Henry McClure Live. Judy Gatewood, you hit the nail on the head. Our government, this is not working. This form of government is not working. We, look, I'm telling you something. We've, the people that run for office, they're nice people and their hearts are in the right place. But one thing that they're serving up around here is too much government. I mean, think about it. Let's think about this for a minute. I was reminded today, I've been reminded when Alexander was running the water department and he'd give what he'd have extra money and then they'd steal that money and not put it into infrastructure. And the last thing that we need to be doing is giving the Mars family corporate welfare. The whole idea of economic development in this community was to grow the tax base and increase the population. Didn't do it. So the economic development money is used for economic development, infrastructure, and quality of life. So let's just take all that money and put it into the infrastructure of um, our water department. Listen, um, I was in Steve Wade's office the day they retired Bill Cochran. And if you don't know Bill Cochran, you ought to meet Bill Cochran because Bill Cochran today ought to be our city manager. So he comes up through the police department. He's a warrior, he's a war hero. You ought to hear some of his stories. Um, I've asked him to be a board member on the Agape Village. It's a program to fundraise for different veterans projects. And he was telling me some of his stories about the war. I mean, this guy's a sharp fella. And I thought he was going to be in the meeting that day with Mr. Wade, but they retired him. He was the chief of staff. And you ought to ask him personally about his retirement and why he retired in the first place from the and when I say he got retired from being the chief of staff for Wade because he retired from the police department as chief to become the chief of staff for uh, the then city manager. And then when that city manager moved on, he became the interim city manager. And why they just didn't hire him, we're all like employees at will. And just if you just made this, hey, okay, you're city manager until you're not. Don't sign a contract. I mean, I think that we've got a lot of nice people that work in our city. But also, I think what's happened is they can't fill positions because nobody wants to work in this city. You've hit it on the head, and we've got to have. I mean, if you've never had to make a payroll in life, if you've never had to make a payroll, you probably shouldn't be an elected official because you can't relate to what the universe is all about. I had to temporarily run my pizza business due to some failures. And my job was basically to wind the company down. I did give it the college try for a minute, but my whole stress was, am I going to make payroll? I'm really just working for my employees. I just don't think our city council is working for us. I can tell you I can tell you nightmare stories about how difficult it is from a real estate business, from a developer standpoint, how to do business in this city. It's just unbelievable. I met with the county planning department to get a map or information on all the rural water districts, and I'm gonna work. I'm gonna I'm gonna find development opportunities out in the county for the rural water. Hey, do you want clean water? Here, come to these properties. We can develop them. You can have your house, always get clean water. But the water, see, let's try to look at it like a drug addict or an alcoholic, which I can tell you all about that. So when we're using drugs and alcohol was my drug of choice. So, you're getting drunk and you're not really, you get to the point you're not taking care of yourself. You know what I'm saying? So I think the city council people are like, some of them are like drunk on the power. You know what I mean? And they get, like shiny object, squirrel. We look over here, but it comes to the point where you can't maintain your health. So after 8.5 years of being clean and sober, I look at the city. It's like I call it the reverse Rip Van Winkle effect. It's like, hey, I'm awake now, but the city didn't change and it's actually gotten worse. But just think of the infrastructure issues. I mean, I'm telling you, you talk to the director of the water department or Braxton and say, what would you do with $15 million? But we got to take the money away from Go Topeka. We got to. You can't get 5 million a year and then spend 20 or 38% of it on overhead. When you've got a water department, we're living in a third world country. You got to boil your water. So why don't we attract people to our town by running it right? Like they did this whole thing, everything that they've spent on downtown. And then I moved down there and I noticed, like, just across the street from me is one of the worst streets in town. It's the follow up. It's the follow up. And I could go on and I tell you nightmares about the people, the elected officials, and just really what's under the fingernails of this town. It's just not pretty. Do you get my point? But I, but I am liking the conversation this is starting, and I'm glad I'm not the only one. So, Judy Gatewood, thank you for your input. To tell you I love you, I don't know you, but I do. Thanks. Have a good night. Henry McClure Live. Subscribe to my YouTube channel because I've got a lot of national and some international clients that sometimes it's just easier to find me on my YouTube channel than within the environment of Zuckerberg. I'm live.